Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder and team leader of Streamlined Properties. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Welcome back to another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. My guest today is Mark Shuler, and he's a dual threat. We're talking multifamily, real estate, syndications, but we're also talking architecture because Mark is a renowned architect, and the place that we start this podcast might not be where you expect. This is about why the biggest threat to housing is government interference, and then we go all through Mark's background and how he got here. Let's go. This is episode 260 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Mark Shuler. Mark is a licensed architect, but he also has 30 plus years experience as an architect, project manager and property manager, owner, and real estate advisor. He's an expert in urban infill, single family, mixed use, and multifamily. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. We're having a pre-call. I didn't want to ruin it for myself by getting in all the questions, but I'm just going to go, before we even get to your background, what is wrong with housing in America right now?
No, how long do you have?
Yeah, let's just start there because I've been reading a lot about this, and obviously I'm in the business, and I'd love to know what your take is because your experience is so widespread in this area.
Okay. I'm going to preface this by saying I'm pretty opinionated about it.
Yeah.
But I've been dealing with this for almost 40 years now. The single biggest threat to housing in this country is government interference.
Yeah.
Just in the course of my career, the regulatory overhead that I now deal with is astronomical. I am designing a couple of houses. I live in Seattle, King County, Washington. The permitting timeline for a single family permit in King County is 16 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so I have clients who are carrying their properties and paying a mortgage all that time. And there was a state bill that came down at the beginning of the year, which mandated that permits had to be kicked out in 45 days. It was directed squarely at King County. Well, King County has all their workarounds, and, it's just not going to change. And they've been sued over this in the past. And then you have the timeline for permitting, but then all the reviews.
Yeah. There's so many levers that they can pull to stop you if they want, which I've experienced as well with plenty of red cards for no reason. And then I've tried to fight, and then fighting is futile because you can't win.
Their biggest lever is septic. So this is an unincorporated part of the county. Yeah. So septic and wells are a thing. Yeah. Most of my practice is in incorporated areas, urban areas, and so we just hook up to a sewer and discharge from there. Yeah. They absolutely use that as a mechanism to slow down and, in many cases, stop development. And it's very well known that they're just trying to stop development out in King County, the unincorporated parts.
Yeah, but they're in everywhere else. How did it get like this? Because I'm sure you remember a time when it was easier. Like, why is it so difficult? And what's the actual point?
So you got to go back to post-World War II America. And that's when you started seeing housing development out in the suburbs. Prior to that, we were, suffered through 10, 12 years of the Great Depression. But prior to that, it was, mainly an agrarian economy, right? Yeah. So post-war America is when America was the preeminent power. We're wealthy as all get out. And so you started seeing housing developments out in the suburbs. Levittown, New Jersey, probably near you. You know that very well. It was the first real suburban urban development. Along with that development came, slowly at first, but increasingly, urban planning. And that, along with that, came this practice of redlining in the banking industry. So in the course of my career, urban planning has become a very developed thing. My opinion, urban planners is not that great. There's a lot of smart people with, in my opinion, misguided aspirations. And their answer to, the answer to a housing crisis by a city council and an urban planner, especially a housing crisis created by overregulation.
Yeah.
Drum roll, please. More regulation.
Yeah, right. Regulation about the regulation.
We are not going to regulate our way out of this. And if anything, we're going to dig a deeper hole. And we are 4 million units of housing behind schedule in this country. You can drop a pin anywhere in this country, and there is not enough housing.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, because Seattle and a lot of the West Coast has been the more aggressive of the states, and Washington and California on ADUs and allowing that. But if they're tying up new builds, like ADU can only accomplish so much. It's on existing, areas for where you can get 2, 3, if you're lucky, 1 most of the time.
Yeah. I literally, right before this podcast, 5 minutes before I got on with you, I submitted an ADU in Seattle. And that's supposed to be the panacea for all of our housing woes. It's not going to happen.
No, we're not getting 4 million ADUs, that's for sure. But it's interesting, though, because, at least the West Coast seems more amenable to getting more housing, but maybe that's just kind of a view.
Well, why is that? Let's look at that and unpack that.
Yeah.
Where I live, it's one of the most densely populated places on the West Coast. North of San Francisco, for sure.
Yeah.
And then you've got California, which is 20 million people live there. And I don't know how often you go there, but man, they're packed in like sardines down there. You just can't keep developing tracts of single family homes. It's just, we don't have the dirt. But then it's all compounded by environmental regulations.
Oh, yeah. I've done a lot of transactions in California, and just transactionally, there's so much more paperwork where I'm just, I'm not reading any of it. I don't have time to read all that. It's just, it's unbelievable.
I hire consultants to deal with that for me.
Yeah.
So I have to have on every one of my projects, a tree arborist, a wildlife biologist. Sometimes I have to do an archaeological survey. I have to survey topographically and environmentally the lots.
Yeah.
It's just ongoing regulations. I have to do a stormwater plan. I have to do obviously a septic plan in unincorporated jurisdictions. But then I have to do a critical areas determination, which is, another whole report that I have to have written. And these reports, they're 5,000 to 10,000 a piece.
Yeah, and the theory behind making sure all of these things for housing is done correctly, of course, makes sense. But where did it go wrong where it became so overregulated that it's impossible? It really is.
So, look, I am determinedly agnostic in the business world. I don't venture to the left and I don't venture to the right. Yeah. I'm just a hired gun, and I got to get my job done on behalf of my clients. But I work in the bluest of the blue. And I also am a general partner on a lot of apartment projects down in Houston.
Yeah.
The two extremes, one which is totally regulated and one which is the Wild West.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you which is better. I can tell you, driving around Houston is an experience. It is just unfettered, uncontrolled development, and you'll see multi-million-dollar mansions next to a gas station. That doesn't make sense to me either.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be a better medium somewhere along the way. We certainly haven't found it in this country.
Yeah.
Europe figured this out years and years ago. They ran out of dirt centuries ago. And yet they have charming pedestrian cities. And Paris just made the downtown area, auto free. But that's basically a Baroque city. The outlying areas, you drive all over the place. But, in the inner core, which is the heart of the Parisian mentality, I get it. Plus those streets aren't really designed to house cars, both parking and driving.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It is maddening, the regulatory burden. And
16 months just for a single family home is insane. Yeah.
that is being slow walked, and I know it.
Yeah, of course.
And you want to hear the craziest thing about that? I mean, you've heard me bitch about it, but you're creating a bifurcated society due to this regulatory overhead. Only the wealthy can afford to build out in their county.
Yeah, I mean, who else can wait 16 months for something to build and carry? I mean, it's crazy. Yeah.
So and purportedly it's because they want to create these large plats of, 500 monochrome houses and, and create density. Density is the word du jour in the planning community, along with the lost middle housing. So, yeah, they're trying to force development into those large plats, which, you concentrate all the infrastructure and, utility work and everything. But, that's like a small percentage of the arable land in King County.
Yeah. Well, I mean, does architecture play a role in how this can be fixed in terms of how things are built, or is there just too much regulation to even bother? You kind of have to cater to what they'll allow.
Look at the development pyramid, pardon me, the development pyramid. So, you have the technical guys, building and life safety reviewers. You have geotech reviewers. You have the environmental folks. And at the top of that food chain sit the urban planners. They are the folks who know the least about development, know the least about design, engineering, construction management, supply chains. They know nothing about the banking that goes into any kind of a project, and yet they control the entire process.
Yeah. It's almost like they want to make a pretty picture that's completely not functional and can't be done, right?
And it is just so frustrating. I don't want to be too opinionated, but look, you can get an urban planning degree from the inside of a matchbook cover. You just don't have to be that driven or that smart to be able to do that job. I mean, basically, you read regulations and you check boxes as projects come across your desk. It's just not a hard gig.
Yeah.
And they control everything. And so, and I don't want to be categorical about this, but man, that's what's going on. And if you think otherwise, go try to develop a project. Your first conversations with an urban planner, it better be, because you've got to figure out what the development standards are for your lot. You've got lot coverage, heights, setbacks, impervious area calculations you've got to do, density calculations. You've got to do all these calculations on the front end just to see what it is you can build. And then you determine what the maximum envelope is for your project. And then you work within that. To do otherwise, if you don't do that, you're going to design that project twice and you're going to have a pissed off client.
Yeah, I mean, but I've seen people follow every regulation that there was told, and then immediately, they're a quarter way in, and now they need to change everything. It's very common. It's just like over and over, like we can't even stick to exactly what we all agreed on this.
Yeah, that used to be the case out here. Seattle was renowned for that back in the 90s and aughts.
Yeah.
And they got sued so many times for literally changing the rules halfway through a project that they now, all conversations have to be recorded, notes have to be taken and sent to the applicant. And those are the agreed upon rules of engagement for the project. Now, we've also formalized that process. Every jurisdiction in Western Washington has what's known as a pre-app or a pre-application meeting. And that's where all the departments come in and they will review your application or proposal for a project and then give you commentary.
Yeah.
And that is the stick in the sand. You cannot deviate from that. Imagine in the early aughts having to try to design a project and not having that feedback on the front end, and they would not give it to you.
Yeah.
Because they did not want to commit to an answer. Yeah, that and look, the ball keeps kind of, the arc of planning history is long, but it's always bending towards justice, to paraphrase a quote from MLK. But it's still maddening. It's still really complicated. It's not for a rookie.
Yeah.
If you don't understand it or don't know how to do it, you got to hire somebody who does.
Yeah, it just seems like
the costs start just going up. So an average house, development wise, on the front end, $50,000 to $60,000 for fees and permitting.
Right. That's just inaccessible to most people. I mean,
it kills projects.
Yeah. It just seems like there's not really a good reason for it. Maybe it started as government overreach and then control, it's the last bastion of control. Like, hey, we're a little city, but we're going to tell you what you can do. And then there's NIMBYism and all sorts of things that are guised in that way to say, hey, like NIMBYism is one of the funniest things. Anyone who's listening, it stands for not in my backyard. But I keep finding this, and I found it in my town, where it really does mean something when somebody says, no, I really want affordable housing, but like also just not right next to me. That's it.
So what started out as good intentions became weaponized.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So the whole purported reason for planning is twofold in my mind. It's resource allocation, effective resource allocation. I think we can all get on board with that, right? You want to not just be inefficient in your development process or the consumption of materials. And that goes all the way through like waste stream management off the project once you're done. But the unspoken truth about planning is it was designed to protect property values.
Yeah. I mean, that goes back to redlining and all sorts of quasi-discrimination.
White middle-class property values.
Yeah, of course.
And go take a look at any urban planning department and who is sitting there. White middle-class folks who went and got a master's degree in planning, for the most part, not 100%.
Yeah.
But
you can look at how like jurisdictions are developed, and it doesn't even make any sense. Like the lines for jurisdictions are insane. Sometimes they look like loop-de-loops, figure eights. I don't know how this is even happening.
Now, a lot of planners would take real aggressive whatever you want to call it with what I'm saying, but the net of it all, that's what's going on. I don't care what they say.
No, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious as well. And I was saying before, I just read Abundance by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. They talked about it a lot, and they talked about it a little bit more politically than we are, but it was still historically like what happened? How did we get all this red tape? Why did we get all this red tape? And now, like, as you were saying before, how can we undo it? And we can't undo it by making more, green tape to put on top of the red.
Yeah. So a byproduct of the red tape, in Seattle, anyways, we have these things called neighborhood groups. And that's what I meant when I said the code has become weaponized, because the neighborhood groups are very powerful in this town. And the way our city council is comprised, there's a city council member for each area of the city.
Yeah.
And they just get primary, and these neighborhood groups, they just don't want that development in their backyard. That is the reality of it all. So we have this thing here in Seattle called urban villages, a plan that went into place back in the early 90s. It's pretty basic concept, spoken hub, so we've got these hubs of development that are theoretically anyways, connected with these mass transit rail lines or bus systems. So there's your spoke.
Yeah.
And all the development in this town is concentrated in those areas. And for the most part, we've been following through on that. I happen to live in an area of the city, which is one of the most, slated to be one of the most densely populated when it's all built out. And believe me, thousands of apartments have gone up in my 8-block radius of my house in the last 15 years. But then you've got other areas of town that are just like $3, $4, $5 million homes. And you don't see that happening there.
Yeah.
And if they even get wind of a development project happening in their neighborhood, oh, fuck, they're just hiring lawyers and they're all over it.
It's happening in my town right now. I mean, I live in a fairly high-end town, but they're just trying to put in, I think, 100-ish units somewhere. And it has a very small affordable housing percentage, so they can get it in. And the arguments, in the Facebook groups, like from an outsider who's, generally just looking, it's just like, do people really believe what they're saying? Oh, there's going to be too much traffic. We only have one road going through the town. Like there's traffic no matter what. It's just the things that people bring up to, color it the way that they want is just crazy to me. Like there's just not enough. I mean, New Jersey is extremely dense.
Oh yeah.
We need housing.
Yeah. And so I'm sort of agnostic on that kind of conversation because, we all have our biases, right? So it's like, generally I accept that. And, try to engage people. And, I have the wealth of my experience to kind of talk about it intelligently.
Yeah.
Generally, I walk them in off the ledge and it's okay. But, when it gets codified and politicized,
yeah,
like it is, and that's what we're facing as a society, yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah. Hey, it's Jonathan. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Mark Shuler as we talk architecture and real estate syndications. If you're interested in different types of architecture and you're somebody who's really interested in where housing is going, check this out. I've been invested in a company that I also am an ambassador for called GeoShip. What does GeoShip do? They create bioceramic dome homes. Think Buckminster Fuller. Climate resilient, non-toxic, sustainable, scalable, and affordable. If you want to check it out, you can use my link at bit.ly. And remember, anytime I say bit.ly, it's bit.ly/GeoShipJG. That's it. Let's get back to Mark. Let's go back a little bit because I really like this area, but how did you get started with houses? I mean, when you were a kid, did you just enjoy architecture or was it something that you fell into?
I was one of those nerdy little kids who was an idiot savant.
Were you just drawing houses as a kid?
Well, by the time I was 6 years old, I'd figured out first 1-point perspective and then 2-point perspective. I mean, humankind went 1,400 years from year zero to the Renaissance before they figured it out. And I figured it out by the time I was 6 years old. I mean, I just have this really high visual acuity.
Yeah.
And, I'm good at art, I'm good at math, I'm good at science, and was fascinated with building. Was always building stuff as a kid. And so it was pretty evident by the time I was 9 or 10 that I was going to be an architect. And so I have this maniacal ability to focus, which is a really good skill set to have in my line of work.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, I just lucky, I found something, a hobby I was able to monetize, and been doing it for 40 years now. I've always enjoyed it. And
I assume you started investing after you were an architect, and how much did that help you in terms of you have the know-how to fix really anything, but you also have the know-how to know like, okay, well, this isn't going to be worth it to fix when you're buying or even when you want to go bigger?
That's an interesting point. I've been asked that before. Really, my investment career and my architecture career, the only overlapping skill sets is my business sense. But I don't really use my architecture skills, except very occasionally when I'm called in to consult on a renovation or something like that.
Yeah.
But, I raised a lot of money for my deals, and I can call on my architectural background and my practice and my career history mainly as a credibility thing.
Yeah.
People listen to me because I've been in the industry a long time, but they don't really kind of overlap that much. You'd think they would, but they don't.
I would think if you were buying a lot of single family homes, it may play more into it. But if you're going into larger scale, you're looking to make sure, is the roof going to leak on everybody? Is it architecturally sound, the building? And then the rest, if you're looking at the yield, is going to be what it's going to yield and what you can do with it.
Really, my investment career, it's more about Excel than it is architecture.
Yeah.
You get really, really good at Excel. And I spend countless hours working at pro formas for projects. And, as an architect, I have pretty good math skills. So I like thinking like that. But really where it does come into play is on the value add, the CapEx side of things.
Yeah.
I talk to countless people starting out in the business who have extremely unrealistic expectations around how far they're going to move the needle on rents on a very inefficient or insufficient CapEx budget.
Yeah.
I mean, they think they're going to dump $2,500 a unit in there and move the rents $100 a door. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe carpet, and but they want to do, in-unit laundry and reface all the cabinets and redo all the plumbing and lighting fixtures. And it's like, dude, our cost on that, and we have 200 people on the payroll who do all this work for us. It's $19,000 a door.
Yeah.
That's our cost, and we control our supply chain from India and China.
Yeah.
So how are you going to do that for $2,500? It's not going to happen. So
I don't know what you can do for $2,500 right now.
What's that?
I don't know what you can do for $2,500 even
much.
on a small studio. I mean,
yeah. So, but that's the game. You're trying to do value add. That's the only way to make money in these larger projects. It's a fool's errand to think that you're going to wait for the market to push the value north and cash out. Too many people did that in 20, 21, and 22. We just bought 2 deals last year where from the same operator. They swooped into Houston and bought 6 deals, bunch of doors.
Yeah.
Bunch of doors. They lost all 6 properties.
Wow.
Our 2 deals alone, they evaporated $40 million in investor equity.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Texas was definitely a hotbed for some errors.
Yeah. Just erroneous assumptions in the pro forma.
Yeah.
Really not knowing the market. That's the first time they bought in the market. But, private equity guys are like lemmings. They kind of follow each other. And so everybody heard that Houston was good, so better get down there.
Houston's gigantic also. I don't think people realize how big Houston is. I mean, it's just huge. Yeah.
And you got to buy in the right hood, and, you have to buy at the right price. And that takes boots on the ground experience there to understand that. Too many people kind of cruised in there and made the same mistake. It's good for us. We're buying stuff at, 2017 prices.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to ask you some question to help some flippers, because there's a lot of people who they're like, oh, I don't want to buy any older houses. But the more that I research architecture and houses that I've renovated, I actually like the older houses. I feel like they were built better. Am I right about that?
No.
In general?
No.
All right.
I mean, I live in a house built in 1914, and it is nothing compared to the way I build houses now. And I've been my entire career preparing for a 9.0 earthquake.
Yeah.
So the houses I build, they're all like LEED. Silver, at a minimum, probably verging on gold. They're hyper insulated, high performance systems, really high R value windows and doors. Just, all sorts of, green building things that we are thinking about in these structures now. Nothing like that exists in anything pre 1990, maybe 1985.
Yeah.
I learned about it in school. There are these calculations you perform for heat loss through a system.
Yeah.
It's called a target UA analysis. And so you're just adding up the U values of the various components in the system. I went to architecture school in the early 80s, and that was really the beginning of that calculation. It's put out by an engineering society in this country. And it's and now it's become very mature and evolved, and there are spreadsheets published both in the state of Washington, California, and nationally, where we just kind of tabulate all the various systems in the spreadsheet, punch up a number, and we get an output at the end. And it sizes our heating power plant. Then you can make, choices of what kind of heat source you want. Do you want gas, electric, maybe a heat pump with a backup of some sort? So it's all driven from that. None of that existed when my house was built. I mean, it wasn't even thought of. So
if you're talking to someone who has the money to flip houses and wants to look, would you tell them to look for newer type builds, 80s and above, 90s and above, 2000s and above, just because it's safer overall? My older ones always have structural issues. I know how to do those, but those aren't for new people.
No. Yeah, if you buy product maybe from the late 70s onwards, you're going to find insulation in the walls.
Yeah, right.
Modern wiring systems, probably copper piping. You won't find Zimsko panels, which are fire starters.
Yeah.
It's probably a safer bet to do something like that. And then, focus on the finishes. I mean, houses are bought and sold in the first 3 minutes. You don't have to rebuild the house to make a profit.
Yeah.
So, make it look pretty. It's lipstick on a pig for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, that's it really depends how much you know when you're buying, because we're making our best deal on buying, just like you were saying. You're getting 2017 prices. That's where the money's at. But of course, you could do a terrible job, which a lot of people do. It just doesn't, as you're saying, it needs to look good, and some people just have horrendous taste. I don't know what they think they're doing, but
I've a few of those. Yeah, you only make money on the buy. If you buy wrong, you're not going to make money. So make sure
you're hamstrung the whole time.
You are already in the red.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to climb out of that. And then you start cutting corners and making stupid decisions, and you're kind of in a panic by the end of the project. So make sure you buy right. And anybody can figure that out.
Yeah, I understand that too, Mark. Where can houses be the most forgiving before we get on to how you got into capital raising?
Yeah, I'll try to keep this concise. In the house flipping community, a lot of what flippers should be focused on is, I think, finishes, making it look pretty, fixing the rot, cleaning up the yard, give it the good curb appeal. I think where a lot of flippers may go off the rails is when they start doing a lot of construction. And given the permitting environment and the complexity of the building codes, a lot of flippers don't have that context to understand exactly all the things that are involved with flipping a house. That said, the basics are the systems, right? Mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So they should have a competent professional come in and evaluate those systems. A lot of times the electrical panels are really ancient. And, electrical panel upgrade would cost you $1,200 to $1,500. But that's fire and life safety.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you go back to something you were talking about at the beginning with the enormous lead time that you need for permits in Seattle, that may lead inexperienced flippers and maybe contractors to say, oh, you don't need a permit for that. And that is the thing that can really hold you up later, right?
Oh, my God. I can give you a war story. I'm working on a project right now where the guy was calling for his inspection and never pulled a permit, did the whole job.
Got to open everything up, start all over.
It's a post-construction permitting exercise, which I've done plenty of, more than I care to. But, it's as easy to do right as it is wrong.
Yeah.
But flippers, they're very profit-driven and do not take the time to understand the permitting and inspection process. It's not that complicated once you understand it, but it takes a couple of rodeos to figure it out. And what I always say is, if you don't understand it, partner with somebody who does. And if you both don't understand it, hire somebody.
Yeah, there's expediters in a lot of areas to assist with the permitting who know everybody in there, and that's a smart spend. And you have to understand the jurisdiction that you're in. Like, what the lead time is going to be, so you can advise people up front, hey, we're going to have a long wait before we get going here. And I think that jurisdiction to jurisdiction could be completely different and relationship based.
And it can avoid you making a ton of mistakes. Another project I was on, guy tore open a house. There was asbestos everywhere. And it got airborne. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? The first fine is $25,000. Same guy was flipping another house. He converted a garage to a bedroom. There's no parking on site. Called for his final. The guy came out and looked at it. Said, you don't have any parking. And he said, well, I converted this garage. I said, well, when you put the garage back, give me a call. Yeah. And so he had to rip out everything he did. Not only that, he filled the driveway in, built a retaining wall. I mean, he was really screwed.
But that's just bad planning. Of course, you should have found out if you can do that first.
Unfortunately, a lot of flippers are cowboys. And it's just like, calm down. Okay. There's still plenty of money to be made, and you take your ego out of it and just, follow the rules and understand the context. I've been doing this 40 years, so I kind of have it between my ears, but it can be overwhelming the first time you get through it. So just, take the time to figure it out and you'll be fine. Otherwise you could, really get hosed.
Yeah. Well, one more thing before we transfer over to the capital raise and syndications, but when it comes, so there's a lot of jobs where it comes to a point where you might need architectural plans. There's some things that owners can do, small bathroom renovations. Owners in some jurisdictions can just write up a general thing. When does somebody really need architectural plans from an architect to make sure that they're safe with the city generally, just generally?
When you start doing structural stuff, start doing framing, upgrading foundations, anything involving engineering, for instance.
Yeah. That's a good tip off.
Yeah. But then if you're going to like wholesale start building out basements that were not previously built out, you have to make sure that you've got proper egress out of those spaces.
If you don't know what egress means, you shouldn't be playing around with basements and attics.
No,
and multifamily, really. You should just know.
Yeah. So, I've measured hundreds of structures. I have a high-powered gaming laptop and a laser tape, and I just go out in the field and shoot the house.
Yeah.
And I'll come back to my office and draw it up and then, create a set of plans pretty quickly. It is pretty easy to do when you've got the skill sets developed. A lot of people get these home architect pieces of software from Office Depot or something like that, and they have.
I can say from my personal experience that using an architect and doing everything the right way up front will make things so much easier the whole way with the town. Just like we were saying with permanent, if you're starting off on the right foot, you're going to be in great shape. But when you don't, and then you try to squeeze it in at the end, they're going to do everything to screw you later. It's just the way that it goes, because you should have asked for it if it wasn't an honest mistake.
And it's not necessarily adversarial, but you come across looking like an amateur.
Yeah, and protective, and they can use it that way,
And jurisdictions have a legitimate right to understand what you're doing with that structure.
Yeah.
You may hold title to that, but government controls it.
Yeah.
And when it comes to fire and life safety, I'm kind of hardcore about it.
Yeah.
I've seen 6 people die on projects I've been affiliated with.
Yeah.
And so, stuff happens.
Yeah.
So that's why the code book is this thick. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why it sits right next to my computer. I constantly have my nose in on it. And then there are online versions as well that I spend a lot of time looking at.
Yeah.
So just, slow down, take the time to understand it. Think fire and life safety.
Yeah.
These are, if you're rehabbing, that's a toxic environment, and you have to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's all I got to say about it.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. I wanted to transfer over to how you got from architecting to your investing background, and then from getting into what you guys do in terms of private commercial at SGRE Investments.
Yeah. Well, I've been working with developers forever. And a lot of these guys, they don't have the context that we just talked about, but they know how to put deals together or think they. So they, I'm a hired gun. So they hired me and my firm to, design, I've designed huge apartment buildings, 200-unit apartment buildings before. And along the way, I just got really curious about it. It's like, God, I could do that. So and make a hell of a lot more money than I'm making as an architect.
Yeah.
So back in the early aughts, I went to University of Washington Business School and got an advanced degree in real estate development. And 7 members of my family are all in real estate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I have it's kind of in my DNA. Yeah. So, 2012 finally jump-started it. Life gets in the way. I went through a divorce. Finally decided to take the plunge and start doing deals. So started looking at types of product that I like to do or wanted to do. I'm a housing guy, so apartments was a real natural segue for me to get into it. And did my first deal here in Seattle. I found a 30-unit down by the airport, locked it up, brought some partners in on it who had much deeper pockets than me. We did the value add things. And so for your listenership, that, there are 4 types of projects out there, anything from, basically a single tenant occupancy, which is going to be a Starbucks or a Burger King, to, ground up development. Yeah. And there are project types in between. Value add is kind of a mix between an existing building and ground up build. Depending on what you do, it's equivalent to flipping an apartment building.
Right.
So we've done a lot of those. That first deal, we plunged probably $20,000 a door into it, including upgrading an elevator. And commercial deals are valued on multiples of cash flow, basically. It's called a cash on cap. So you divide the net operating income by the cap rate in the marketplace, and you derive a value. So the game, then, the goal of the game is to drive the NOI as high as you can. Yeah. Which we did on that deal. And I think we tied that one up for about 2.6, and 4 years later, we sold it for $6 million. Made a nice little profit for ourselves and our investors. So, and I've done, I think, 15 or 18 deals since then.
Are you always looking for value add because you have the architectural experience to really be able to see where you can change something that other people may miss, I'm sure?
Yeah, to me, that's the only sensible project that makes sense. I mean, ground up takes years.
Yeah. Especially now. I mean, you never know day to day how long it may take.
Right. Well, a standard apartment deal in Seattle, it's 5 years, soup to nuts.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, that is a long time to carry dirt and, spend money on consultants. Whereas the value add, I mean, we are legitimately, the day of closing, our teams are on site starting to get to work.
Yeah, I like that differential too, and I think for investors, it's also important to note that they're gonna see money quicker. That's important.
Much quicker. Yeah, the sort of funding capital on the front end of a ground up. I mean, the rate of return they're commanding is multiple double figures. Yeah, whereas on a value add deal, we promote, just like everybody else, about a 20 IRR deal pretty consistently with an A-pref. Yeah. It's an 8% guaranteed return. That's annual distribution, and we do quarterly distribution, so it's 2% per quarter. Yeah. That's the goal. We are in an extremely challenging real estate environment right now, and have been for, God knows how long. Yeah. And, we've had 11 interest rate raises here in the last few years.
Yeah, it changes a lot.
Before that, a global pandemic. It's been challenging. That said, I've got a deal here in Seattle. When we get it stabilized after raising some rents here next year, we're going to sell it and realize a nice profit. It took longer, but we still didn't lose it like a lot of operators are. Yeah. So, all our deals are stable right now.
Yeah. Are you focused only in the Seattle area, or do you branch out at all?
I do not do deals in the state of Washington anymore.
Oh, okay. That 5-year cycle just to develop and the 16-month timeline for flipping will kick out. That's enough for me.
Well, going back to what I said earlier in our conversation, I live in the bluest of the blue.
Yeah.
And, Washington last week passed statewide rent control. First state in the country to do it.
Yeah, so
it is not a friendly, landlord-friendly environment. So, no, we're primarily in Houston.
Oh, right.
We've got 5,000 units under management there. We built my partners built a big company. There's 200 people on the payroll. It's all about control, trying to control your costs and drive the NOI north. And so,
and Houston and Texas in general have been interesting because they got to a housing apex, but they still need the housing. It's just that a lot of other people had to stop and pause. So there's pause projects around Texas, but the housing is going to come back. It's just like, can everybody make it through?
Yeah. I think, markets, you got to study the dynamics of a marketplace. And so like Seattle, we're constrained on one side by the Puget Sound and the other by the Cascade Mountains. So all development takes place north and south along Interstate 5. And so the normal market forces on real estate don't apply here. Most real estate ebbs and flows like a sine wave. What goes up must come down. And you're always trying to buy right before you bottom out and then ride it up again. Yeah. I've done that a number of times and made money doing it just by understanding where we are in the cycle. Yeah. Seattle's cycle looks like this. It goes up and then it stays horizontal, and then it goes up again and then it stays horizontal, and it goes up again and it stays horizontal because we're supply constrained here. So demand is outsized, and like I said earlier in the conversation, government knows no limits on interference with the marketplace.
Yeah.
So I'm just tired of it. So I just forget it. So about 7 years ago, I went down to Houston and met a couple of guys, and I've been raising capital with them ever since. And, we've got, like I said, 5,000 doors under management now. And I think we've got 600 million that we're managing currently. 60-40 on the leasing and 40 on the construction side. So we turn a lot of units very rapidly.
Yeah, I had a question about, so if you're doing a heavy value add, obviously if you're buying a lot of apartments, in one, there's going to be people still in the unit. So how are you doing that construction when, say you have 200 units and there's 180 fill, you want to get some out. It's very hard because that can end up making it take a lot longer. It's not like you get 180 units all vacant because
it's not as hard as you think. I mean, it sounds like a hard problem, but I can explain how it works. When we take over, there's a lot of bad leases. People who haven't been paying the rent. We're just you're out of here.
Right. You get rid of the ones that are obvious.
Yeah, we're able to open up 20% of the units right away. There's generally on these deals a pretty high vacancy rate to start. And then when you get that pop on, the evictions, you get 20% and we roll through those. We'll probably roll through those units in 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks.
Wow, okay, yeah.
What you see, and this is our thesis, is we do some of the nicest product in the market down there. These are C-class deals with condo quality finishes. And you're getting, workforce housing.
Yeah.
You're getting workers who get up in the morning, go to work. The units, when we're done with them, probably the nicest place they've ever lived. We have no shortage of people who want to migrate internally from.
Right. That then frees up the extra units so you can do it. That makes a lot of sense because everybody thinks C-class, they can't afford more. No, they're just paying what they can. But if they see something better and they're doing well, it's a great opportunity. They don't have to go very far. They just move one unit to another. It's 100 times better, not for a gigantic increase, but a fair one.
And our thesis is, everybody deserves a nice place for their head to hit the pillow every night.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing granite countertops and luxury vinyl plank flooring, crown molding in a C-class deal. Nobody does that. And, it's a two-tone color scheme. And, we do glass vessel sinks in the bathrooms with a granite countertop.
Yeah. That's a very enhanced C-class.
Yeah. And the way we can do that is we control our supply chain. We have direct vendor relationships in India and China.
Yeah.
Houston's the largest port on the Gulf Coast, so we just get it shipped to us in, containers.
Yeah.
And then our drivers go down, pick it up. And we've got a 20,000 square foot warehouse down there. We just kind of haul it to the warehouse. It's racked, cataloged, and the warehouse manager, manages it all for us.
Yeah, and that's so much different, though, having the ability to do it at the volume and the units to convert at volume, because somebody who just buys a 200 unit isn't going to have the same opportunity if that's their only thing. They're going to be dealing with, who knows, first time, take much longer, don't have the access, pay much more because they can't do volume.
We're doing these turns for legitimately half of what anybody else is doing for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that works great for the investors too, because that's a savings on the front, but still a huge increase because you're going to get a big increase in rent. And again, across 200 units, a $20, $50 increase in rent is gigantic on the overall value of the project. That's
our secret sauce right there.
Yeah.
And there are very few operators out there who do what we do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
A lot of them are paying third-party managers, and they're just getting hosed.
Yeah, because they want to stay out of it, and they don't want to do that part. But there's a lot of money left on the table in the middle.
There is. Yeah. So
amazing. Mark, where's the best place for people to get in touch with you? I know you've got SGREinvestments.com, but you also have your architecture site. Where would you prefer for people to reach out?
For the investing thing, people should just hit me up at investor at SGREinvestments.com.
Great. Investor at SGREinvestments.com.
Yeah, and I'm in front of this box all day long, so my email is configured to answer every single minute of the day. I generally get back to you right away. And, look, if you want to learn more about the business, I love talking about it. I've got some free resources I'm happy to pass along and educate you a little bit.
Yeah.
So, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. It's been an eye-opener. I like the architect's point of view. As I told you at the beginning, I have a little bit of an obsession with architecture, so it was great to just get all the ins and outs and possibilities and then see where you went on your journey as well. So I really appreciate you spending the time.
Thank you. I appreciated the conversation.
All right. That is Mark Shuler of SGRE Investments. Again, you can find them at sgreinvestments.com. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode. Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up on episode 261 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And it's Richard Wilson of Family Office Club. Who are they? They're the largest association in the family office wealth management industry with over 100,000 current members. Since 2007, they've been working with family offices, helping them to identify deal flow from their live conferences and connect with quality investment firms and independent sponsors. This is a good one. We'll see you next episode with Richard.